Hey guys, welcome back to the Perfect Hatching podcast. I'm your host Taron. Today we have a journalism special. We'll be going into the life of a journalist and kind of talking about how to become a journalist in the UK and the steps to kind of go from a hobby to a journalist. And also, we're trying the quickfire question round today. Ask me on Twitter any questions and I'll talk about it in my podcast. So I'll just start off with Arvind. How are you doing today, mate?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. Excited to talk about how to become a journalist because obviously that's sort of the way that I want to take as well. So yeah, excited.
Cool, man. And obviously, I didn't just Google some questions today and kind of Google it. I've got a journalist on the pod today. Nishal, do you want to tell our listeners a bit about your age, your background, a little bit more than I've kind of described it there, a bit about yourself?
I won't disclose the age. We'll keep that secret for now.
Yeah,
But
sure.
background. So I'm from London. I'm born and bred in London. And I've got Swiss Indian heritage. So Swiss dad, Indian mum. So mixed, lots of different cultures and backgrounds growing up. But yeah, born and bred in London is the main part.
Cool, man. And obviously, you're a journalist for, I think, a few different companies. Do you, without telling too much details, would you like to tell about the companies you work for and kind of how they help upcoming journalists in the UK?
Yeah, so I'm currently a freelance journalist. I write for my blog, Nischal's blog. I do some stuff on a Swiss Super League for Moon Intelligence, and I also work with BCOMS, which is a Black collective of media and sports. And I'm sure we'll touch on it later, but the main goal is to increase diversity in the sports media.
Cool, man. No, I really agree with that. It's really good what you're doing at the minute and the company's doing, and I hope it can grow bigger ultimately. So yeah, I'm just going to go into the first topic. I'm going to be talking about this one. Let's kind of start from before you were a journalist, obviously. Let's start by your aspirations growing up. So I just want to know, what were your dreams before journalism? Were you always like set on stone on becoming a journalist, or were there other dreams before you got into the industry?
There were two jobs I had before I wanted to be a journalist. One was a train driver because I
Wow.
love Thomas the Tank Engine. Yeah, and the other, which is a bit closer, was an author, like just writing, I think, kids'
Cool.
books at the time. But it's always been journalism since I was in primary school in 7 years old. I wanted to be a journalist, so it's been a goal literally from the very start. So I've been working on that, really building on it, kind of my whole life, really. But yeah, that's been the main aspiration and the only real job that I've always wanted to do. It's never been anything else. I've never kind of changed midway. It's been journalist since the very, very start.
Yeah, that's really cool. Like, obviously, I'm just going to talk about my opinion. When I was younger, I had no clue. I wanted to be a professional footballer, and obviously, I tried my best, but now I'm looking to get more into sports media. So I guess it's kind of like that kind of industry. And it's good that you want to become an author. That's really interesting because it's like the same kind of industry, same kind of writing. And I can imagine you being the next Roald Dahl, to be honest, if you weren't a journalist. But yeah, let's move on. Arvin, what did you want to talk about next?
I sort of wanted to ask Nischal, like, when was the moment you sort of realized that you really wanted to become a journalist and that you thought this of more of a job as to like just a hobby?
Honestly, it's always been in the mindset that I want to do it as a job and in my career. It was never a case of I like to write, I'm just going to do it for fun. It was always I want to do this as my job. So, very early on from when I started, I'd be doing articles and match reports. I remember one of the very first ones I did was for a piece of homework. I did a match report of the 1966 World Cup final, did a massive cutout newspaper spread of the finals. And, that's one of the really early ones. And I did that throughout school. I do match reports on Chelsea games I'd been to, managers being sacked, of course, that was pretty much every year. So, right from the start, it was always the aspiration to do it as a job and to do it as a full-time profession. I never really had a period where I was just enjoying it and then I suddenly realized I want to do this full-time. From the very start, it was, this is the job I'm going to do and I want to do.
No, that's cool. I just wanted to ask you a quick question as well. Like, I was like when I was in Barcelona, when I was in like year six or year five, I kind of like realized I wanted to be into sports media because I know it sounds a bit cheesy, but I was in the commentary box at the new camp and I just started commentating over Neymar and Messi as a joke, even though they weren't there. And from that moment on, I kind of realized, but there was like a significant moment in your life, like like a single moment that you thought, yeah, this is really perfect, and this is my career, you know?
Again, it's been right from the start. Having I would say there are more moments which have really reinforced it and made me realize, this is something I can do. For example, the 2018 World Cup, I was lucky enough to be involved in some capacity there. I wrote for the Guardian, I wrote for Reuters soon after, and then it was soon after I actually got I joined 90 Min. which is a massive opportunity for me. And once I started writing with them and they really liked me and I stayed on longer, I realized, this is a big break. This is my big break. So, again, it's always been something I've wanted to do. It's always been the long-term goal. But there have definitely been a few situations and kind of moments in my career where it's really reinforced it and said, look, I'm doing this. I can do it. And I'm in that situation already. So it's been a long process for sure, but definitely one that's come to its benefits now, which I'm really grateful for.
Yeah, sure, man. And Arvin, what did you want to touch on next?
Um, I'd just like to talk about getting into the journalism industry because a lot of people talk about like you have to go to university or you can do it through work experience if you're lucky enough. So, did you go to university?
I did, yeah, and the beauty of when I was younger, the beauty of the journalism is you don't have to do a journalism degree, and it's brilliant. You don't necessarily have to study it and get straight into the job. You can do whatever you want. So when I was younger, I was always told that you could do whatever you have a passion in, whether that's a language, a humanities, a science, and then you can use that skill set to take that into journalism. So that's been really helpful, and you'll see a lot of journalists actually. Mark Chapman, for example, he studied I think French and history, something like that. Hugh Edwards, the main presenter of BBC News, he studied French. A lot of these journalists, while they do have their journalism qualifications, what they did at uni wasn't necessarily journalism. You've got a lot of history, languages, politics, etc., etc. So I think to any young journalist, looking at their next steps, whether it's university or something else, that's the beauty of it. You don't necessarily need to go to university. It's great, it will really help you, but it's not a be all end all if you don't choose to go down that path, because there's so many different ways into the industry. You'll see so many different stories and outcomes and the situations where people got in from a young age or an old age. And that's the great thing about journalism. It's hard to get into, yes, but there are so many different avenues which you can take to get into the industry.
Yeah, for sure, man.
No,
Yes.
me personally, I really don't want to go to university because uh, I just want to get into it straight away. But would you recommend people going to university? Because obviously, universities, so for qualifications, you can't really match that with anything else. But would you recommend it for other aspiring journalists?
Like I said, I think it depends on the journalist. Overall, yes, I would recommend it, but it's not the end of the world if you don't. Like you said, if you don't want to go to university, that's completely fine, because people have different paths, and there are plenty of journalists, excuse me, never went to university, and they're still at the top of their game now. So it helps you massively, especially if you're doing journalism or a specific degree in that. It's a huge help, but it's not the only door that can be opened. You can go straight to university. You can do a media course. You can do an NCTJ, which is the journalism qualification in this country, and you can take any of those routes and still get into the industry. So, I mean, it shouldn't be a fear or a necessity that you have to go to university, but it really does vary on do you want to go? Because if you don't want to go to university, don't force yourself, because
Yeah.
you won't be enjoying it, and you can use that time more productively. So really be honest with yourself and know what's best for you.
Yeah, for sure, man. That's really interesting because right now me and Arvind are kind of attending our media college, so it's more about trying to get into the industry with like some work experience. Our college has quite good contacts with like Sky Sports and BT and other stuff like that. So I feel like if you are looking to get into work experience, it can be just as beneficial as Nischal said. But let's just move on to the next topic. I want to know more about. I saw a video with Fabrizio Romano like a few months ago. I think it was BR Football, where he kind of described his day-to-day routines. And I know Nisham, you probably will be as big as Fabrizio in the future. But as a new new in the industry journalist, I just want to know. Like, I don't want to know about what you have for breakfast, what you have for lunch, but I just want to know, like, from on a busy day for you, from the time you get up to the time you kind of go to sleep. I want to kind of know what a day-to-day like basis is like for a journalist.
On a busy day, it can be very packed. If we look at stuff I've done recently, covering Chelsea games, you'll start with a pre-match press conference, and it's not just attending that and then going on with your day. It's preparing for that. What questions do you want to ask? What do you want to get out of it? Where are you going to lead and shape your article around? So yeah, plan it around that. Obviously, go into it. You've got to do the transcripts, get those pieces up. But the thing for me is, it's not just a normal 9 to 5 journalism job. It can vary. Some days I might not have anything to write about, and I just kind of take it easy, or I get prepared with some other stuff. Other days I'm covering a match. So, I've got to get everything together. I've got to know what I want to do, what I'm doing article wise. Other days I've got previews to write, or there's a big news story that's broken and I want to and need to get an article out on that. So really, I think the beauty of journalism is there's no days that are exactly the same. You can have one day where you're out on the field at stadium, obviously difficult now with the pandemic. You can have some days where you're in your office doing a write-up. You can have some days where you're interviewing a manager. So it really varies. It's not a 9 to 5 office job in most cases. And that's what I think makes journalism so appealing, because it's not set in stone, but you're just doing one thing for the rest of your life. And that's it. There's so much you can do. And that's what makes it, I think, such an appealing industry to get into.
For sure, like on a day-to-day basis, it must be like really flexible to kind of be able to do articles. I'm sure that your bosses or if you're working in a 9 to 5 job, they'll probably like set you some tasks to do during the day. But as a journalist, it must be quite flexible to kind of choose when and as long as you get it done during the day that you can do it. But yeah, Arvin, what did you want to move on to after this topic?
Just on to future aspirations. So, Nishal, say we had this conversation this time next year. What would you have wanted to achieve by then?
I want to go to the Euros. I want to do stuff for the tournament this summer. So hopefully I could come back to you in a year and say, yes, I did all of this. I covered Switzerland. I was working at the tournament. I want to keep progressing, doing what I'm doing now, keep getting involved with Chelsea, keep having these opportunities, and keep developing. And, if we look at myself in a year, I just want to be able to look back and say I've made progress. Because if we look at this last year, I think undoubtedly, not just for me, but for anyone in any industry, in any job, for you guys as well, it has been the most difficult year in terms of whether it's working, finding new opportunities, producing content. And it's been a big challenge. And, a year ago, none of us knew we would be in this situation, in the third national lockdown, deep into a pandemic, waiting to emerge from it. So we had to adapt around that. So if I look back at that year, I'm happy. It wasn't ideal, of course, but I'm happy that I could deal with what happened, and I managed to still produce content. So in the next year, obviously we've got the hope of a pandemic being over and restrictions being eased. But mainly, I just want to keep making progress, keep getting opportunities, and keep developing myself as a journalist. Because whether you're 15 or you're 50, there's always space to improve, and there's always parts where you can improve your writing skills or your camera pieces or anything in the industry. You're always learning and you're always growing.
For sure, man. And I just wanted to touch on that topic a little bit more before we move on from that topic as well. I just want to know, like, as a personal standpoint from you, what has been your biggest achievement so far as a journalist in the journalism industry?
That's a tough one. Recently, definitely going to Chelsea and being an accredited journalist there, because I don't know if your listeners know, I'm a big Chelsea fan. I'm a lifelong,
Really?
as long as I've wanted to be you would never know. But as long as I've wanted to be a journalist, I've been a Chelsea fan. So they've gone hand in hand. So that was a big moment for me. All my interviews, very proud of them, interviewing Chelsea's first black player, Paul Canaville, members of parliament, former Swiss footballers. But I would say probably going to Chelsea and being in the
Yeah.
press box for Stamford Bridge. That's undoubtedly the biggest moment, because you've got to start somewhere, and to be able to have that opportunity and be in that situation, it's unbelievable. And to be there covering, being employed to write about your club is just, it's an amazing feeling, and one that I hope everyone can have, and also hope that you can have, because I'm sure you'd be great at doing it. But yeah, that's undoubtedly the biggest moment of my career so far, and I hope there are many more to come.
Wish I could go to the Allianz Arena one day and cover Bayern, but we'll see.
Hey, dream big, dream big.
Yeah, man. I see you like on the channel, obviously that we're on that. You always sit like right next to the Chelsea players, and I'm just like, oh, man, things I'll do to be next to like the likes of Giroud and like Abraham on the bench, man. It's just so cool. I just start speaking to them. But yeah, to kind of talk to that a little bit more, just to wrap that topic up. I just want to know, obviously you're Swiss, and I'm sure you want to cover the Swiss national team at the Euros. Do you want to kind of be at the Euros, maybe all the World Cups in the future, kind of covering Switzerland like you are with Chelsea at the minute?
Absolutely. I'm developing my skill set about the Swiss national team. I've got the knowledge of them. I've been watching them for years. They are my team. And to be able to cover them in the same capacity as Chelsea would be brilliant. So at international tournaments, I was lucky enough to be at the World Cup, to watch them as a fan. And if I can, work towards the Euros, obviously the aim was to do that last year to cover Switzerland at the tournament, but pandemic permitting, that didn't happen. So this summer, whether it's been involved in the tournament as a whole or focusing on Switzerland or anything in that capacity, would be brilliant. But long term, absolutely, because I think, especially in the UK, right, if you want to cover a national team, most likely England, and that's completely understandable. But I'm in a very, I'd say, unique position that I've got 3 different nationalities and 3 different countries to choose from. And it just so happens that my whole life, my connection has been to Switzerland because my dad is Swiss. So I've been supporting the Swiss national team. So if I can get into that niche of being the only or the main Swiss journalist and Switzerland correspondent, that would be brilliant. And that's what I want to keep developing and keep building my platform as.
Yeah, sure. No, for real. It's I'm sure it's really inspiring to a lot of people to kind of see. Obviously, I'm not trying to assume your age, but I'm sure you're quite young to have come so far, like covering Chelsea, being interviewing Tuchel, which we'll go into later, being at Stamford Bridge quite a lot, and I'm sure in the future you're going to be interviewing some Swiss players as well, interviewing the Swiss manager a little bit in the future as well. But yeah, time to move on to the round now. I'm sure you're all looking forward to, guys. I'm going to move straight on to the quick fire round. There's been a lot of questions, as we mentioned before we started recording, but I've kind of narrowed it down to like 5, if Nischal has the time to kind of cover about 5. And Nischal, this is the thing, we're going to be a bit lighthearted here. I'm going to give you 2 minutes maximum to answer these questions, and some of them are quite long. So I've got my timer. Yeah, no, for each question.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, cool. 2 minutes. So I'm going to ask you some questions. Some of them are a bit lighthearted, some of them are a bit serious. So tell me when you're ready, man. I'm just going to start.
Yeah, as many questions as you want to answer. I've got not all the time, but as many questions as you want to answer. Cool. I'm ready.
Yeah, I'm going to start. So the first question is, which journalist do you look up to as a role model?
When I was younger, I really looked up to Simon Johnson. He was at the Evening Standard. Loved reading his columns and reading that paper on the way to school. Now, generally, I've looked up to lots of journalists at the BBC, so Hugh Edwards, Clive Murray, Asad Ahmed, Dan Walker as well. The list can go on. Lots of big journalists that I looked up to, and some that I'm lucky enough to know now and be in contact with. So yeah, but the main one when I was younger, Simon Johnson and Hugh Edwards, I'd say.
Cool. Well, you did that in 30 seconds. I have to put the time down a bit. But yeah, that was good.
Simon Johnson. Got to be quick.
Yeah, got to be efficient. Yeah, let's move on straight on to the next one. Let's go on to another question by Josh Forster. Thanks for mentioning, Josh. 3, 2, 1. Nischal, what's your favourite food?
Indian food, khichdi curry, which is like rice mixed with lentils. So it's kind of like mashed together, like yellow rice basically, and then curry on top, which is thick yellow, like full of flavors and herbs and all. That's favorite food in the world for sure.
Yeah. Obviously, me and Arvind are Indian as well, so I just wanted to know, apart from that, what was your favorite kind of Indian food? Apart from that,
I love dosa.
I had dosas on Sunday. I had dosas on Sunday.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah.
And then Gajugati as well. That's my favorite bento for sure. So any Indian food. I'm from Gujarat myself, so mainly the West Indian food. But yeah, I love Indian food.
Seasoned food, man. Seasoned food is the one. Indian food is pain.
Cool.
Yeah.
Men of culture, they know.
Yeah. Let's just move on. Patrick Larson is asking, thanks for listening, Patrick. I'm sure you're listening. What is the most challenging part of maintaining a blog?
I would say keeping consistency, because when you're producing any content like with your podcast, you need to be consistent at a level to gain an audience, get exposure, and really build your brand. So as much as I may be trying to write whenever I have the time, that could be every 2 weeks, and that's not enough for me. So I'm really looking to get in around at least 1 article a week, at the very, very least, but trying to get 2, 3, maybe even 4 pieces a week, and really keeping that constant to keep people reading. So definitely keeping consistency and having a regular schedule is the most challenging part, but also it's the most rewarding, because if you can do that, you reap the rewards. You get more readers, you get more engagement, you get more opportunities. So definitely consistency, it's hard, but it's worth it for sure.
Yeah, we're at the podcast, we're trying to release 2 or 3 a week. So yeah, I think it's really key to be consistent. Let's move straight on to a question from RJ Good Things. Cheers for sending in your question, RJ. He asked, as someone sitting on the other side of the world, as you know, RJ is from Australia, that wishes he was in your position, please describe what your experiences are like when sitting at a ground and asking questions to the manager, etc.?
It's very surreal above all when you're as a fan. Of course, you love these players, you love the manager, and then the next day you're just in a press conference, just casually talking to them. So I think the main thing for me is actually separating being a fan from being a journalist. Whenever I go to a Chelsea game, regardless of the situation, I will be going as a fan. I want Chelsea to win, but it's knowing when you need to have that professionalism and when you need to really be focused and motivated to do your job rather than standing up and singing Carefree every 5 minutes or chanting along to the Liquidator. So it's a really surreal experience, absolutely, and especially as someone who's grown up watching Chelsea and going to games my whole life. It's very weird not only going as a journalist with a different perspective, but also going in an empty stadium, which above all is just really sad. It's so sad to see the stadium completely covered up. The moments of silence as well, that really, really hurts me because I'm sitting there and, if it was a normal game, I would be really chanting and getting the players going, but I can't, If you see a journalist doing that, you're going to have to be asking questions. So it's definitely a different experience going as a fan and as a journalist, and especially behind closed doors.
For sure, like it must be really hard, like without fans there as well, to kind of control your not anger, sorry, your like you can be angry at some of the players sometimes, but like control your happiness, like as a journalist, because you're maybe one of the only fans who feels like he has to motivate the players at times when they're maybe not playing as well as they should. But yeah, let's move straight on to the next question. Bubble City, question. How did you get to be at Stamford Bridge?
How do I put it simply? How I've been at Stamford Bridge recently is that I've gone with BCOMS. Like we said earlier, Black Collective of Media and Sport. I've been working with them for the last year and a half, and their aim is to represent underrepresented communities. So including us, that'll be people of color, LGBTQ plus community, women, all in the sports media. And our aim is to really drive diversity, specifically for the Black African Caribbean community. But in general, it's all of these underrepresented communities. So I've been going because BCOMS have a partnership with Chelsea Football Club. So I was invited by both of them to work together and help, of course, diversify the media and, really represent BCOMS and be able to do my own work.
Yeah, cool, man. Thanks for the question, Bubble City. I don't know if you even follow me, but yeah, I must be a fan of the show. Let's move straight on to the next question. Who should we choose? Let's choose Dieter van Googt. He's always retweeting our stuff in the show, so let's give him the question. Has it always been your objective to become a journalist? We've already kind of talked about this. Should Tuchel stick to the 3-4-3 till the end of the season, and will Abraham remain at Chelsea next season?
Number one, yes, it's always been my goal, always been my dream. As long as I've been able to talk and watch football, I've always wanted to be a journalist. Two, for the rest of the season, I've got no reason to see that we should change from a 3-4-3. We're unbeaten in 9 games. We're back in the top 4 race. We've got a foot in the Champions League quarterfinal, on the verge of that. There's no reason to fix something that's broken. But in the long term, I don't think we'll be seeing a back 3. We know Tuchel is a very flexible manager. He changes formation. He goes from 3-4-3 to 4-3-3 to 4-2-3-1. So we can expect a lot of tactical flexibility in the long term. But for now, stick with a back 3. 3, I want Tammy Abraham to stay. I'm a big fan of his. He's a fantastic player, fantastic striker. But if Erling Haaland does come in, if Chelsea do manage to sign him, he's going to have to leave. There's no denying that. Because Olivier Giroud, he could be one to leave. And realistically, that would be the one to make most sense in moving on, given his age and the fact his contract is running out. But then again, it also makes a lot of sense for Tammy Abraham. He's got a year left on his contract. He's approaching the prime years of his career. He's a proven goal scorer. And if he's not going to be playing, let alone as a second choice striker, but as a third choice, he won't have a realistic chance. So I want him to have a future at Chelsea so badly. I want him to say, but if Erling Haaland comes in, I can't blame him. And the door's open for him, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'll just give my opinions on Abraham quickly. As you know, got back to Cobham boys, but like I think we should kind of stick with the youth kind of fixtures where the youth players we're kind of bringing in, and Abraham's been a player who's been at the academy many years, so I'll definitely keep Abraham. And if Haaland's to come in, he needs to compete with Haaland if he wants to be a top striker. I don't think he should leave. Obviously, he hasn't been offered a contract, but yeah, I really want Abraham to stay. I think he's been our top goal scorer in the last 2 seasons. So yeah, I really rate Abraham. So let's move on to the next question. Craig Cully's asked 2 questions. I'm just gonna ask you one of Craig's questions. Does it annoy you that no one in our team takes long shots?
we get results at the end of the day. We're winning games. We're seeing a production and we're seeing results come in. So no, it's not necessarily something that I'm watching Chelsea. I'm thinking, why isn't Kovacic trying to bang in from 30 yards?
Mm.
But of course, it would be nice to see more long shots. We know we've got a lot of players in our team, especially capable of that. It's a great way to score and a really good opportunity. But I think if we're scoring from long shots, then you see the problem. Maybe we're not scoring from crosses. If we're missing all our long shots, you say, well, why aren't we being more efficient? So I think either way, in any way you're trying to score a goal, there's going to be different perspectives. And sure, I'd love to see us score from outside the box and bicycle kicks and worldies, but it's not be all end all. As long as we're getting results and as long as we're doing well, you do it however you want to, Thomas Tuchel. You be my guest.
Exactly. I just wish that one of these Kovacic long shots would just, just kind of curl in, just one. That would just make my life. But yeah, let's just move on to the next question from Jonathan Mann, my handle CFC. Would you lose some defensive stability if it meant scoring more goals?
There's a great quote we know from Jurgen Klopp that if you score 3 goals, we'll score 4. And that's the mentality I'm sort of thinking in this way. If we're scoring goals, we're winning 5-4, 6-5. Brilliant. We're winning games. We're scoring lots of goals. That's excellent. But we have been really, really under the collar and criticised a lot, rightly so, for our defence in recent years. It's not been good enough. Last season, our defence was awful. There's no other way of putting it. This season, it's been better, but, still we see some shaky moments. We have some questions to be asked. And we've built something really good with our defence. Bringing Andreas Christensen and Antonio Rudiger back into it. Eduard Mendy's come in. Thiago Silva, of course, the key player who's come in. So I wouldn't want to backtrack on that, to be honest, because we could sacrifice that for more and more goals, which obviously we need more goals. But if we're scoring all these goals and we're still conceding, and God forbid we get to the end of the season, win the title race and we lose on goal difference because we in Manchester City, for example, have scored the same number of goals, but they've conceded 20 and we've conceded 50, then it's all for nothing. So no, I would not sacrifice that.
Yeah, I think that as long as we're getting results at the minute, the Man United game maybe was a game we could have won, but we're still getting results. And when we start losing, hopefully we don't touch wood. Hopefully we don't start losing games like left, right, centre. But until then, yeah, Jonathan, I think we're all quite happy with the system at the minute. But let's move on from the quickfire questions onto the last topic of the podcast. Nischal, as a biased Chelsea fan, I am. I'm very much Chelsea all the way. I want to just ask you a bit about Thomas Tuchel. I've been really interested in Thomas Tuchel since he's come in as a Chelsea manager. I've watched many interviews of how he kind of conducts himself. Obviously, pre-match, post-match, I'm always watching the interviews. Haters TV, Nischal, you're aware of Haters TV or other like BT Sports, Sky Sports. I'm always interested to see how Tuchel's kind of speaking. So I just want to know, as someone who's interviewed Tuchel, like on the Haters TV Zoom call or however it is, what impression do you get of Tuchel, like speaking to him one-on-one?
He's a pleasure to speak to. I think there's a lot of managers who have a bad reputation for being quite ratty with media. They don't give off a good reputation, or they just don't really treat them with a mutual respect. And, that can be on manager side, journalist side, either way. But for Thomas Tuchel, he's a very kind man, very transparent is what I think. He's very clear with us. He says it as it is. I'll be honest with you, so and so. And, to speak to, you can tell he's motivated. You can tell how driven he is. Because the question I got to ask him at the Newcastle game was, are you going to aim for the top 4 of the title? And he said, we'll never stop pushing. We're going to keep going. And that's such a good mentality to have. And like you said, in all the interviews he does, press conferences, anything, you can see that he really cares. And he's also a very intelligent football man. He's passionate. He loves what he's doing. He wants the best for his club. He's a good manager. And he's someone who you can really tell just from watching that he's got those sort of vibes and he's that sort of person. And, from speaking to him as well and seeing him firsthand, he's so engaged and, really passionate about what's happening. See him on the touchline, he's shouting and he's frustrated and he's really engaged. And, he brings that energy onto the pitch for the players. And it reminds me of Antonio Conte, not in the same way, of course, but it reminds me a lot of watching him on a touchline going berserk. And Tuchel is the same. I hear him a lot in German, talking to his assistant manager, same talking to the players. So he's a really fascinating man to listen to and talk to. And I can't wait for when fans are back in the stadium and they can see that first time, because when Stamford Bridge is full, everyone will see exactly what we're talking about and what we've seen of him in his first month.
Yeah, I feel like he'll really thrive as well with fans to kind of show his personality a bit more. Like, hopefully, like Conte, he goes up to the fans, not necessarily at the minute jump into the fans, but like kind of show your passion with the fans and like
Mm.
show how much you kind of care about the club. You're not just another manager who's going to come in and just take his a wad of cash and just kind of leave. But yeah, let's move on. Arvind, do you have any other questions before we kind of wrap this interview up?
Um, yeah, I have one question. I feel like a lot of people don't touch on this, but do you think it's important as a journalist to have a sort of edge in the journalism industry through knowing like another language, for example?
A language is massive. I can't recommend it enough. So for me, I speak two other languages. I speak Spanish because I've studied that. And I speak German because I'm Swiss. And honestly, if you can do anything as a journalist, as well as obviously your basic journalism skills, get another language under your belt. It helps so, so much. And in, my whole life when I've been speaking to journalists and I've been asking them for advice, when they're much further above me, of course, like top of the game, almost every single one of them has said, if I could go back, I would do another language and I would learn another language because it's such a valuable skill, especially in this day and age. You look at the Premier League, we've got a German manager, a Spanish captain, we've got, a Moroccan winger, Croatian midfielder. There's so many different cultures. And of course, you can rely on English, and we're lucky that we can speak as our native language because that's the main one. But if you can add more languages, not only does it make you more valuable as a candidate, as a journalist, but it means you can talk to someone, whether it's a player, a journalist, a manager, in their native language or in a language they better understand. And it goes for anything in life. If you can speak to someone in their native language, it means so much more. It's more personal, it's more meaningful. So really, if anyone's trying to get into the industry and wants to really make themselves the best possible journalist, learn another language. I cannot recommend that enough.
Yeah, it's because Arvind, obviously you
Yeah,
speak German, but not
yeah,
like fluent German at the minute. Obviously, you're from Germany,
not
so
fluent. Yeah.
mm, that's
Yeah, I was
obviously
born
if
in Germany. I lived there for about 9 years, and my brother's always been saying that I should keep up. I've lost so much of it, and I just regretting it right now. But hopefully, I can still keep up with it.
yeah,
Oh,
hopefully you
that's
can.
great. It's brilliant,
Mm.
though.
Yeah, like obviously at secondary school I did quite a lot of Spanish, but I kind of really want to learn Spanish if I ever want to go to Spain and do a coaching course or do stuff like that. So Nischal does recommend that if you are trying to get into journalism, kind of learn your different languages. Maybe have two or three. Three is maybe a push if you're just learning English at the minute, but maybe two or three is. And Nischal is obviously very lucky to be Swiss that he can learn German. Maybe his family speak it or something like that. So yeah, if you are trying to get into journalism, maybe kind of learn the different languages. But yeah, guys, I'm gonna kind of wrap this up now. We've kind of covered quite a lot, gone through the questions, gone through the quickfire questions as well. But yeah, I'm just gonna get some final thoughts from the guys. Arvin, how have you enjoyed the interview today? And is there anything you want to say?
Yeah, I've enjoyed the podcast very much today. I feel like it's been a pleasure talking to Nischal, and I don't think a lot of people, when I watch podcasts, I don't think a lot of people talk about how important journalism is within the football industry, and that's really a topic and an industry that I want to go into because I'm intrigued myself, and I really wanted to do this. So, thanks Nischal for coming on today, and yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, cool man. Yeah, thanks for coming on, Arvin, as usual. Always here on the pod. It's good to have you on. And Michelle, would you like anything to plug to our listeners? And how have you enjoyed the podcast most of all?
It's been a pleasure to come on. Obviously, I've worked with you before, Taron. Very impressed by you and great to be on your own platform. You're doing brilliant stuff there. Arvin, lovely to meet you as well. Really great to be interviewed by both of you and, really help discuss journalism and also hopefully help the next generation. So, it's been a real pleasure to come on. Really enjoyed it. If you've enjoyed what I've heard today or if you want to see some of my work, you can check out my blog, nishalsblog.com, and you can follow me on Twitter at Nishal_SP, and that's where I put all of my work. But thank you very much for having me today. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, we've really enjoyed having you on the show, and it's been good that you've allowed us to kind of talk about your industry because a lot of people might not like to talk about it. Like you see some interviews with journalists, and mostly just talk about like, for example, if I was to talk to you about Chelsea today, I'm sure that our listeners would like to enjoy more about different topics. So yeah, it's been really good. But anyways, I'm gonna sign out now, guys. Make sure to keep things perfect, and I'll see you soon.